ExpressionEngine is such a powerful content management system and a true content management system. It gives you full control over every single piece of data that you want to show on a page. But let's say, for example, that you want to build out some complex JavaScript front end so that your users can find the data they want in real time. They can see things as they live update, whatever that might look like. Using that with ExpressionEngine templates can get really complex really fast. Building out a JSON template with channel entries loop and making sure that it formats correctly and lints and all of that can be really, really difficult. This is part of the reason why we created Bones, a simple add-on that allows you to create a headless EE website to power your JavaScript apps, your JavaScript mini pages on your site, whatever that might look like. So today, we're going to explore Bones and we're going to build out a simple blog search on our site. So let's take a look. All right, so let's take a look. I've spun up an EE6 site with EE Pro installed, as well as Bones installed on the back end. And basically just use the default theme in order to do this. So what I'm going to do is actually walk you through the Bones backend, what it looks like, and how best to use it. So right now, I'll click on my Bones. All right, you can see it gives me two action IDs, so I can either use the action IDs in my JavaScript call, or I can create a template, which is what we're going to do today. I can set it to active, so I can just shut the API off completely if I wanted to. And I can also say that I want to force use of an API key, which my API key, very strong right now, 123. Probably one of your first guesses, but let's actually take a look. Now, what's great about using Bones inside of ExpressionEngine templates is that you can literally create an API with one line of template code. So here's my template. This is going to be in my API group /index. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to eepro /API. And here we go. We can see that Bones is now checking to see if I'm authorized to view the data, and I am definitely not. So what I'm going to do, oops, let's see, eepro API key equals 123. There we go. And now you're going to see a much different picture. You're going to see all of this data. It looks super duper small because it's just sending an actual JSON call. So what I'm going to do, I just kind of show you what's in here right now. I'm going to grab all of this, dump it into my code editor, and I'm going to format as JSON. So you can take a look and see what's in here. So by default, Bones, with just this in the template, will grab all of the information from all of the entries that are in your site. And it'll parse all of your custom fields, include all native EE fields, as well as blocks as well. And so what it'll do, if we take a look here, it tells me my API call was successful. I have 18 entries that are coming in. And then it gives me the actual entries in this data object here. So we can see this is my beautiful entry titled you see it. So it will give me the entry ID, title, all of the basic stuff that you get in a channel entries loop. Every date will come out with a couple of different formats to make things really, really simple and really easy for you to parse on the front end. Let's see what else. We have our channel title, so we get our channel information here. We get our username and email information. If we didn't want to see that, Bones has ways to shut off which custom fields that you want to show and which you want to pull in. For our example here, we're just going to pull in everything, see things real nice and quick. And then we see our actual custom fields. So we have our SEO title, our SEO description, our related entries, which is a relationship field. We have our file grid, our RTE. This entry clearly doesn't have much. Let's find one that's got a whole bunch. So if I do channel title blog, actually, let's search for something that's got an SEO title. So I know that the custom entries coming from ExpressionEngine have some of those. Great, here's one. All right, that's my test page with everyone. Let's try a blog entry. There we go. All right. And so it's got all of our information, our blog audio, our blog content. You can see in the blog audio, it's pulling in the different types here and the different IDs. So if we wanted to parse those just similar to how the native ExpressionEngine templates do, we can do that. We've got our blog content coming in as HTML, which is how it's stored. Our custom other information, whole bunch of information. I have CardThrob on the site because it pulls in the data there. I just don't have much, obviously, on the blog. So that's what it looks like when stuff is coming through. We're going to save this JSON call because we will use this to build out our test. So Bones, by default, will start with just this one tag, exp :bones :entries, and you can do whatever you want from here. And so what you can also do if you wanted to store your data as channel entries params instead, you can do that. There's our entries again. If I only, it works the same way as channel entries do. So if I wanted to just see entries for my blog, I can do that here. I know it's really, really tiny, so it's a little bit difficult to see. But it's pulling in 13 entries now, just for the blog. And I can also leave my template that way and do that up here as query params. So this is a great way to power a JavaScript front end. So let's actually do that now. So if I go, I have this test page that I created, which is part of the Bones package. So you get this test template that works right up front. You can just literally drop these into an API template and it'll work nice and easy for you. What we're going to do is create a quick Vue front end to give us our Bones information. So I have my query string saved here. I'm going to keep that for later. All right, so I have this in API group /test. So let's do that now. /test. Great. And so now what you see, we've just got some inputs. I'm going to turn off debugging. Just so I can, and show my profile error. No, just make things a little bit easier for us to view. Great, there we go. All right. So right now, all this is a simple form. It doesn't do anything. I'm actually going to open my network tab so you can kind of see the network calls coming in too. It'll be pretty neat. All right. So what we have here is a simple fetch to get the API route. So I have my route input box, which I can put my /API route since it's where our API lives, our API key here, and then whatever query string I might want to use. And then this is our little card that we'll build out with the blogs. So let's do that now. So like I said, we're using Vue, a great JavaScript package that actually powers EE Pro. It's used for a number of different things, but it's a really, really fast and simple way to build out a JavaScript front end like this. So we have our Vue object initialized on the page. We're calling it from the CDN. And we just have our three things. We want our data, so we want to make sure that we're getting the actual data objects here that we need for our inputs as well as our entries. We have our methods. This will be where we actually call our functionality. We will call the API. We do any parsing that we need. And then our mounted field, which is where we'll do some things to set up. So let's start with this. So the first thing we need is for our inputs. We have our inputs named, oops, this should actually be for route. Oops, there we go, for route, for API key, and for query string. So we have these named, but let's actually change these to use Vue. Get rid of those extra name attributes. And so we do that by using Vue's vModel, which acts as input binding and makes it reactive with the Vue object. So change these to vModel equals, and then we need each of those three, the route, API key, and query string. Let's go down to our data object, just add those in there, and since the JavaScript object, we'll just make them blank strings for now. All right, let's save that, and let's actually take a look in our Vue debugger. Right now, we've got a whole lot of nothing. So let's refresh, let it rebuild. And now we have our three objects. And so we can see when I start typing in my route over here, we can see that's working. It's connected to the Vue instance, and it is reactive. That's great. All right. Great. Now that's good. So now what we'll need to do is actually work on getting the posts. So let's do, we have our card here that will act as our display for our blog. So what we'll need to do is loop through each of the entries that we're getting back. So we'll create an array called entries. And then we actually have to write our function to get our posts. So since I'm doing this in the browser, let's do get posts. Since I'm doing this in the browser, the first thing I'm going to do is let self equal this, just so I can access this Vue instance without having it parse. I know there are definitely better ways for that. However, I never ever trust a browser. Better to do it the old-fashioned way. All right, so we're going to get our URL string, and we need this get URL function, which I created here. I'm just going to pull that in and explain that. So basically what this will do is just get the current URL that we're at, since we're calling this internally, gets the protocol, gets the host name, and gets the route, which we enter up here. That's our data object. And then it will create the query string initially with whatever API key we enter. And then it will return that string. So, and then just for our sake here, I'm just adding some headers to get around any CORS issues, cross-origin, different browsers, different websites, that kind of thing. Not such a big deal for us here, but if you are attempting to call an API or call a JavaScript feed from another site, CORS issues will definitely be the bane of your existence. So let's take a look. We refresh. We don't see anything because we haven't done much yet. Perfect. All right. So the next thing that we need to do inside of here is set up some settings for JavaScript to call. This goes along with our headers. We are going to use the get method. We're going to use these headers. We're going to set up the mode as CORS just to help us out. And then we're just going to set up our JavaScript fetch function. So we're just using the native JavaScript fetch. So we'll do fetch, and we'll do our URL string, which is what we're using to get the full URL created from the current website, as well as our route and API key here. And I want to use the settings I've set up. And that will just tell it to use method get, mode CORS, and all of these headers that we've added. All right, so fetch will return a promise. So the next thing we have to do is work with that promise. So we'll do then response equals response.json. And all that does is take the string that's received and convert it to JSON. And then it feeds it to the next part of the promise, which will be then data. And that will give us the actual body of our JavaScript call. And we'll say, since we want to get the entries off of here, let's take a look at our JavaScript object. We see entries comes off the data object. So I will say self.entries equals data.data. All right, let's save that. Now, the one thing we haven't done is tell it how to actually get the posts. So let's do that now. So let's find our submit button right up here. I'm just going to move this to a different line just to make reading easier for me and for you. And what we're going to say is v on click. We're not in a form, so I don't need to prevent it, equals get posts. So now when I save this, go back here, refresh our page. We can see here we've got no entries. And we can see here we haven't made any XHR calls. So let's actually try it out. /API, our API key. And let's hit submit. And you can see it's reaching out to the back end via Bones. It's getting all of our information. And then if we go, whoops, didn't actually set our entries. Let's see why that was. Let's see why we're not getting our entries here. /API 1, 2, 3. Okay, yeah, definitely got our entries. Let's see. Self.entries equals data.data. Oh, that's correct. Let's take a look and see. Maybe I missed something on the Vue end of things. Set up our API one more time. Hit submit. Oh, there we go. I was going to say, I just didn't have the reactive look at it. And now we see all of our entries are loaded into our object here. So this is great. What we want to be able to do is actually see this live. So let's go back to our code base. And for our card here, what we're going to do is add a Vue v4 loop. So I'm going to move that to a string. Go. And let's say we'll do v4 equals entry in entries. And this is just a simple JavaScript style loop. v4 loops through any array or object here in the Vue instance, and we're just going to call that entry for our entries. And then with Vue, what we need to do is actually set a key for each of these so it knows how to continue to be reactive. So if we look back at our, let's actually look at our JavaScript object here, we can actually use our entry ID as our key. So let's do that. Key equals entry.entry ID. All right, and let's take a look at what that looks like. So I reload my front end, call my API, whoops. I hit submit. Let's watch our network call go through. And now I've got a load of cards here, which is great, but not very helpful. So let's actually go through each of these and add our fields. So if we say this is our status, let's see, in our JSON call here, our JSON response, excuse me, there we go. So we have our status field. So let's do entry.status. And let's just take a look to see. That's using Vue Vue's curly bracket syntax in order to pull in the data and make it reactive, as those things might change. So let's just take a quick look. /API 1, 2, 3. All right, and there we go. We have all of our statuses. Let's do the same thing for title. Entry.title, and this is going to be 2 curly brackets. And what we can do for description, I guess there are a number of different ways we can do this. So just for sake of testing, we can, let's say we wanted to get just a specific field. Let's see. Well, we'll just show the URL title for now. Maybe we'll show the link. What's that? We'll add a /, and we'll just pretend they all live at entry URL title. Okay, just do an A tag. There we go. We'll just add a test href here. And here we can see the rest of the data if we wanted to. So let's actually do that. We'll throw in let's throw in a computed style property. Computed properties in Vue are reactive, but cannot have variables inputted in them from the DOM or from the data object here. So what we'll do is we'll say computed fields entry, and we'll just return JSON.stringify entry undefined 2, just to make it nice and readable. All right, let's go back, and we'll just, in our other things field here, computed fields entry. And now, there we go. API 1, 2, 3. We're doing our network call. Here come our entries, and here are our entries. So I would ignore all these test entries. This is my test database, but here's all the nice ones here. Now let's say we actually wanted to avoid all of these test entries. So like, let's just say I only want to see channel equals blog, and let me get the rest of my query string that I tested with here. Search SEO title equals not is empty. There we go. Oops. Oh, that's why. Chain equals blog. How about we try that again? We don't need those there. Great. And now we have just the ExpressionEngine entries that are coming in. What's great is that because we do all of this in a query string, it makes it nice and easy. So if we wanted to, what we could say is we can just have it load up with this. So let's actually go back to our Vue instance, and not our template. We can close this for now. Let's go to Vue. We already know our Vue. Our route is /API. We know our API key is 1, 2, 3. We know our query string is going to be that. And we know that when we land on this page, we just want to get the posts. So we'll go to mounted. We'll say this dot get posts. Refresh. And we can watch the API call happen as soon as the object is mounted. And there are our entries. We tell our users nowadays, every website is an app. Everyone comes to a website expecting to be able to find the information they want as quickly as possible. Bones is here to empower you, to empower your users to find that information in a real-time way. Reach out to us for any help, for any suggestions, whatever you might need. And in the meantime, enjoy Bones.